Question of the day. Is it possible to obtain financial freedom by bootstrapping yourself? I had an interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago with a couple of superstars on the Twitterverse, and we got into a rather, I wouldn't say heated, but it was a really serious conversation. So I said, you know what? Let's bring that on because, a lot of folks, as we talk about the Black community, they are bootstrapping. They are first generational wealth. Many times they don't have a college degree. Sometimes they don't have a high school degree. So many times, many folks are locked out of being able to bootstrap, but many are able to figure it all out. So let me know what you think. Put a comment in the chat. Let me know if you think you can bootstrap yourself to financial freedom. But today I got two superstars on, right? Two superstars. First one coming on. Y'all hear this young man in my lives all the time, Mr. Don Johnson. Gotta give him the horns. Thank you for joining us today, brother. You have been a fan, a watcher, a supporter for many, many years. I'm finally glad to get you on. And I think I'm the first one. But we got another superstar in the building as well, right? We got Mr. The Neighborhood Finance Guy. My man Lawrence is in the building. What's up, Lawrence?
What up, what up, what up?
He's like a really smart Twitter dude. Not just a Twitter dude. He's a really smart guy. And he's always causing problems on Twitter. So I definitely wanted to have him on. What's up, man?
What up, man? Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me in the space because I follow the show as well. Not as long as Johnson out here, but I've been there from the very beginning. Well, not the very beginning, but like 2 years ago. I was like, all right, this guy, is onto something. So I love your show, man.
I didn't know you were following that long. Thank you.
Yeah, I went back a couple episodes too. If I listen to somebody, I go back to kind of get a chance to like really get to see like how you came up from and all the obviously the lighting was kind of like my lighting, terrible. But now you're actually looking real sharp.
Yes, my lighting sucked. Some days my lighting still sucks. So listen, lighting's hard, man. Lighting's hard. I'm gonna have to put somebody on staff and handle all this for me one day. But we had a great virtual Twitter dialogue talking about an article by talking about a woman that was interviewed, a Black woman that was interviewed, talking about bootstrapping doesn't make sense anymore. And to give it context, Lawrence actually posted it, went off, dragged it. Then I don't know who got there next, Don or me, but I was like, well, the lady's a PhD candidate. He was like, so what? It sucks. But just to get it started, let's add it a little more context. All right, let me put this on the screen real quick. I want to share the post. And so this is where it all started here. I don't know if everybody can see this. Let me try to blow that up just a bit, just a tad. All right, I think that's good now. All right, so it started off by, you know what? That's too much because I'm missing part of it. Dang it. All right, so it starts off, post your personal finance take that will get you canceled. And the lady says low-income people are actually very financially literate. Folks just use financial literacy as an excuse to not address systems that perpetuate social economic inequality. What made you go off, Lawrence?
I already have a problem with this entire statement already. Because one, like I'm from Miami, Florida, man. I'm from the Miami-Dade County where people never made more than like $30,000 a year. Like I would know because my mom never made more than $30,000. I did her taxes all the way to retirement, and I look back at her Social Security stub, and she never made way more than that. She worked at Walmart. I know a lot of people, like my aunts worked at McDonald's. We worked like some real service, low-end jobs, and a lot of people they made some level of money and they knew how to somehow survive off of money, but they had no understanding of financial literacy. I think that's a stretch. When we start making that kind of like weird bombastic assertion, like, yeah, you know how to kind of stretch a dollar, doesn't mean that you understand how to really manipulate money in a way that goes beyond just how you use it to spend. So one of the guys I watch as well is Pocket Watching Jeff T. He even with JT, he even like he explained, I guess his definition of financial literacy is both the knowledge of and also taking action. And by taking action, that means you're making your money do more than just spending it on things. That means you're utilizing to pay down your debt quicker, or you're even utilizing to buy assets, creating opportunities for you to actually make more money. So when we make these statements, low-income people are very financially literate, like, they know how to use money in one way, but they're not as literate as you think they are. At least how this post pretends it to be. That's my first take.
Gotcha. Now, I'm going to put up the actual article real quick, and I want to get Don Johnson's take on this as well, because, you know, he had a lot to say too. Now, Don is like this quiet storm because he be moving, but you never know when he's going to strike. And he had a whole lot to say that day. Had a whole lot to say. I was like, whoa. So let me share this as well. But you know what? While we're waiting, Don, what was your thought on this?
I'm kind of in agreement. Just surviving is not the definition of financial literacy. Just because you can survive doesn't mean anything. And when you also look at it, part of financial literacy is understanding at a certain point in time, like, I need to go above and beyond, do what I need to do to increase income. Like, you can't. Those jobs are going to be necessary for a certain point in time in your life, but sometimes you got to be like, all right, what's the next step? What's the next? What skill? What certification? What can I do to better myself to move forward? That's also part of financial literacy. Financial literacy is understanding career capital, understanding career advancement, and moving forward. So just because you can survive off a lower income doesn't necessarily mean you're financially literate. But at the same time, because you have a lower income also doesn't mean that you're not financially literate. I think you have to look at each individual person for what they're doing with their money. You could have someone that's making, $25,000 a year, but for whatever reason, they work it out where they can save $300 a month for however way they can do that. And that may be better off than someone that makes $100,000, $150,000 that don't put nothing away. So at the end of the day, sometimes it just goes into play, like, what are you actually doing as an individual versus what your income says?
Well, y'all probably already know what I'm going to say. Y'all probably already know what I'm going to say. So
let's see where you land on this one.
What do you think?
I don't know. I figure you understand that, hey, financial literacy is way more than just, hey, how we survive off of money. That's where I think we all agree on, in my opinion. On top of that, like, we have to be honest with ourselves too as a Black community. There's probably, I think the last time I checked, there's less than 5,000 Black certified financial planners, to serve 40 million African Americans or Blacks in America. That's an insane probability. We just don't have it. We don't have it. We have some people that do know how to use money functionally, but we have a lot more people that do not know how to use it. And by definition, the reason why we have so much check cashing stores in our communities that's really grifting the heck out of people, upward to 100, even 200% interest. That's not financial literacy. That's just pretty much your own self-made poverty, generational poverty at that point.
So what I would say, right? What I would say is that, well, one, y'all probably already noticed, I actually hate the term financial literacy because, one, it was kind of pimped by banks. Two, if you think about it, do anybody, like, literacy normally is associated with reading. Do you really just want somebody to just be able to read, kind of know their ABCs and maybe can put together a sentence or a structure, paragraph? No, you want them to be fluent in everything that they do. So what I like is not financial literacy, and I get this from my homegirl, Toni Morris, the legal diva. Shout out Toni. But she says we need to be financially fluent. And so it's not enough to just be able to regurgitate what a bank account is, what a CD is, what a brokerage account is, what a loan is. That's not enough. And just like y'all brought up JT earlier, right? You have to understand the theory behind it, but then put it into practice and say, all right, this is how this works. And yeah, everybody's telling me to get this thing and it's going to be the next hotness, but I don't have any savings. So should I really be trying to put all my money in this? I mean, in 2017, people literally were asking me, should I put all my savings in a Bitcoin? How much you got saved? $500. Right? And I mean, so we're really financially literate, financially fluid. Would someone who was really fluid, literate, even ask that question? I would say no. So, like you said, the state of the community shows that we really don't have a high level of financial intimacy is what we really need to be striving for. So, but let's go through this article, right? Let's jump into this article. Let's bring everybody back first. There we go. Let's jump into this article because this is what set Lawrence off. Bootstrap's mentality doesn't work without tackling systemic inequality first. The Black Agenda editor says, so the editor, again, is this lady, Black woman, PhD candidate, super smart. I get what she's talking about, but when you just kind of lump this all into one thing, it gets a little dicey. And so financial literacy advice doesn't help people in the same way, says Sadie Collective co-founder Anna Gifty. I can't say her last name. She's of African descent. And then when you go through it lower on, she says, it begins off low-income people, despite often being seen as one of the groups that would benefit the most from financial literacy programs, are typically aware of their money problems. What do y'all think about that?
I'll go with it. Kind of how I look at the whole article in a quick summary is one. Bootstrapping, in my opinion, which we'll kind of agree on it. I think bootstrapping is the answer for an individual to succeed. Like at the end of the day, you'll hear 1,000 times on your LLC bro pages. Nobody's coming to save you. At the end of the day, you got to do it. You got to do the work. So that's what I do agree with. Where I disagree with is I don't believe financial literacy is the answer for the collective. I do agree with her in that. Like those things still need to be addressed. But at the same time, you can't just address those situations, the systematic oppression, all the the systematic problems that we have in our community. You can't only address those without actually doing the work for yourself, for your family at the exact same time. It's more of a two-sided coin than just one or the other. We can go back a few hundred years and we've seen someone said, hey, let's go the political route. Someone said, let's go the economic route. And we can see how that turned out. And I would say for that time period, you're talking early 1920s, I would say maybe we should have focused on economics at that time period. But then you fast forward 30, 40 years, I'd be like, I'm glad that someone decided to focus on the political side of the house in, 50s, 60s, and 70s. If not, we wouldn't be having these conversations. This woman here wouldn't have went to Harvard if someone didn't. So I think it's a two-sided coin that both sides need to have the equal attention. They need to support each other.
That's correct. What do you think, Lawrence?
Yeah, just the last couple of years, I've been seeing this conversation about bootstrap mentality, and that to me already throws me off. And the fact that she's the author or maybe the leader or founder of the Black Agenda already tells me everything I need to know that this person already has a specific idea about how to solve the problem. To your point, I think people look at it as an either or, right? It's like, oh, we either go nothing but policy changes, and then neglect the idea of economic changes. And I think that's the problem. For the last, 4 decades that I've been alive, I've watched people make these decisions about, hey, let's go the political route. And we've ended up being broker for it. This person as well, like Anna Gifty Opoku Agwemen, I think that's how you say her name.
Yeah, you got it pretty good.
Yeah, she went to Harvard, but she's from a family of people that actually do exactly what she's talking about in inverse, right? Her parents actually got up every morning, made sure she actually had food to eat so she could go to school. That's the idea of bootstrapping. I think in the Black community, we've made the word or the idea or the phrase in such a negative context that we missed out on the truth of it all is that everybody in every other community, ethnic group, whatever it is, get up in the morning and go do something about their natural existence. Of course, financial literacy is not the solve for this ultimate, let's fix everybody and everybody's in kumbaya situation and so society somehow becomes, purely equitable. It'll never be that way. I think that's part of the problem too. We assume that closing the wealth gap is even possible. In any instance where there's society, there's always a stratification between somebody that's got a little bit more money versus somebody that doesn't have a little, that has less money. It's always going to exist. We even do that in the hood. We stratify ourselves based off of what we got on, as far as our outfits. Who has less? Who has more? That's what the human condition is. So this idea of almost like applying this panacea of policy changes, and therefore we live in a kumbaya society, it's an impossible task. And you're 100% right. Financial literacy is about actually fixing a hunger problem within your own household. Like if these people, like when people like her kind of give her pieces, I'm like, you've never been hungry. You never starved to death. You don't know what that really means, because that if you knew that, then you wouldn't speak this way, because the idea of bootstrapping in every other community does not even exist, because that's just the way it's the modus operandi. This idea that this is how we get up in the morning at 5 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m. to go clock in and make money so I could ensure that my family eat or drink. That's it. Or put a shelter over my family's home. This is the way that we do things. And for people that have been in my opinion, a privileged position where she's been protected, where she had the opportunity to go down this route, to say these things is damn near sacrilege. Like she could not go to her home right now and look at her dad and says, "Oh yeah, you're just bootstrapping." She can't have the nerve to do it. She doesn't have the gall to do it, and she could never even try to do this. It's not gonna happen. It's just, and that inflames me, because I grew up this way. I know my parents, like my mom, struggled to make ends meet. I've seen my aunt struggle. I've seen neighborhoods of people struggle all day, but they got up and got it done. That's the whole point. That's how you solve or even start to close the wealth gap. And that's why a lot of other groups have done so. And even like she's Ghanaian, and looking at the census report that they just dropped about the median income, Ghanaians in America are on average, a household of like 3 people are bringing in $72,000, which is more than the median median income of the average American household, more than white Americans as well, because they're bootstrapping. Turns out they're all getting up in the morning, going to work, going to school, getting better degrees, and also ultimately getting better income so they could actually feed their families. That's the point. And
there's a little bit more to it than that, but you're onto something. But I want us to all get on the same page real quick. I want to share the definition of bootstrap, because people love to throw terms out. We get talking about them, and then people kind of just forget all about it. So I'm trying out some new stuff today, y'all. So bear with me for 1 second.
Easy day.
Yeah.
There we go. Bootstrapping. And as you know, if anybody doesn't know this about me, I'm a nerd. So put this in context. Words always have different meanings. They have multiple meanings, rather, right? So in this case, I'm pulling from the Collins Dictionary. And the term I feel is most conducive to what we're talking about, it says to help oneself without the aid of others. Example, she spent years bootstrapping herself through college. You hear the term bootstrapping also used a lot when it comes to business, right? A lot of people are talking about, how can I get a loan? How can I get a grant? How can I get investors? Other people who bootstrap say, how can I go out and sell a product and build up my business first before going to get somebody else that's going to give me a grant, a loan, an investment, just doing it all off sales. And there are a lot of businesses who got it basically from the muscle like that. Now, would y'all agree with that definition of what we're all talking about?
Yeah, completely agree with that.
Agree.
Because we're not talking about the actual bootstraps here. And to be fair, a lot of that term is very racially weighted.
Yep.
Because there were a lot of white folks who would say to black people, just pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You're in America, the land of the free, home of the brave. You can do anything you want. Stop leaning on race. It's a problem. Mm-hmm. But we know things aren't that easy, in my opinion. So I want to play this other clip, and let's really, really get into it.
About the Negro. I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are black?
White America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma. America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land,
So I want to talk about
nothing
something
in
real quick,
reality, and as a matter of fact,
because
to get started.
America didn't free the slaves. I want to talk about something real quick. America didn't free the slaves. I think this is really important to talk about. Lincoln freed the slaves in the Confederate areas. And so many people don't think this is important. I do. I think details matter. If you're at war with the people and all their people are captive and you let them free, you're hoping for a revolt. He didn't really care about those in the North because he didn't set them free. Now, there were some places where they were set free or just treated like secondary citizens, but they weren't free. And we know that just by looking at Juneteenth. Let me get back to it.
Started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma. And
so I wanted to play that because if you listen closely, he's saying, yeah, we should pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. However, you people that have been doing the raping, the stealing, the pillaging, shouldn't be talking about no damn pull yourselves up by the bootstraps. But I know many of us love to take the sound bites, and I'm a big history buff. We love to take the sound bites and only play a part of it, only recite a part of it, but we never look into the full definition. King said, lift yourself up by the bootstraps. We should do all that we can. But that's not it. We can't just stop there. We can't just wait on the government. That's why he got active. He got busy. As Lawrence said, he went out and worked every day. Some would say that's not necessarily what he was doing isn't bootstrapping, but it was bootstrapping in a community sense. So I would say we definitely have to lift ourselves up by the bootstraps as individuals. And we definitely have to seek our own tribe to work to help cultivate all of us working together and wearing collective boots and going to the next level as well. So what do y'all think about that clip?
I appreciate it. I appreciate the way that you laid it out, because it's neither either or. Yet again, it's like you built yourself up, because as you build yourself up, you end up building your family, and ultimately you're linking up with other families that are doing the same, and that becomes the community. I think that's the bigger picture here that I think a lot of people miss with the idea of lifting yourself up by the bootstrap. Part of the same thing that you do. I did the etymology of the word and went all the way back. And it was something that a lot of people, it was generally accepted in late 1900s that everybody lift themselves up that in bootstrap, because people worked at factory jobs or they even worked at the farm. So the bootstrap, the back of the boot had a little strap, which you still kind of see it on some tins or whatever it is. That's what they mean by that, but it wasn't literal. It wasn't supposed to be a literal metaphor here. It's the idea that you could become resourceful with whatever you have. I think, to your point, eventually became very racially charged. And maybe after this point where he actually made this speech, other people internalized it differently, internalized the message differently. They thought, oh, yeah, well, I don't want to put myself up. I'm like, no, you're supposed to still keep working. It's not to say that it's unfair. It's not to say that other people didn't have a leg up before you or they're ahead of the race before you. You still have to do that work. So I appreciate that you played it out. So hopefully people understand and get it. It's not a negative thing. You just have to work for your family. You got to do this. And that's how you build a community.
Yeah, I actually might get in trouble for playing that too. The copyright strikes me heavy. But I felt like we couldn't really have an honest conversation, intellectually honest conversation, because I see all kinds of intellectually dishonest conversations floating around out here, and it's kind of nerve-wracking. But I know what they're doing. They're just doing it for the likes, the views, the accolades, I guess. So what did you think, Don?
I think it's spot on as far as with what obviously the ancestors spoke of. But I think as time goes on, words kind of adjust their meaning, and when you hear nowadays in 2023 when someone says bootstrapping, it kind of, as we mentioned, has a different tone to it at that point. But at the same time, what is very interesting, as you mentioned, we're the only people that are kind of told to bootstrap it. When everyone else, all the other ethnicities that come to America are already here, whatever have you, already got here. People look at what they doing every day like, oh, they're the model. Go do it like how they did it. Yada yada yada. But as he mentioned, as Dr. King mentioned in that clip itself, our lineage is completely different than everybody else's, and us lifting ourselves up out of bootstrap, an example of the fact that all three of us are still here, is an example of lift yourself up by your bootstraps. Like all our families did whatever was necessary to make sure that we're still here generations after generations later, and we're still doing the same way. It's just I think it's a really different conversation when people talk about it. I think it's more or less like there's people that's given the golden trophy, and they turn around and look at you and be like, oh, you can do it because my granddad gave me 400 acres of fucking farmland, so you should be able to do the same thing. Like, no, like you didn't get it out the mud, right? Like that.
There was no mud.
Yeah,
like there was a paved road,
and you're telling me to get it out the mud, and that's the thing. Like, and I think that's where it becomes disingenuous. You have different people, different levels of people telling other people how to do things when that's not how they did it. Like they did it. The reason, the wealthy is wealthy, when you go back, all of them, when you trace their ancestry back to decades, go back 3-4 generations, look at what their parents did, look what their parents did, and you are going to find discrimination. You're going to find them having a leg up that they shouldn't have had based off having a leg up based off just skin.
Or you can find a whole lot of criminality.
Or you could also find people that lost a lot of that wealth as well. So I think a lot of times when we internalize these things, we're like, oh yeah, they had a leg up and they had this like head start or something like that. But some of them didn't have a head start. There's a lot. What's about the stories of the people that didn't have anything at all? Like the first generation becoming millionaires, for example. When we're taking that conversation basically out of context, we forget that other people have their own stories. You got Irish coming out here after the Irish famine, right? They showed up and drove. Why? Because they didn't have any money. There's different groups coming with their own stories. And I think for whatever reason, we neglect psychologically to know that they have their own story, and everybody's doing the best that they can to actually make it, in this society as much as possible. I'm Haitian American. I've heard stories about Haitians going through South America, right? Flying down to Brazil, getting all the way through the Amazon, passing through the peninsula, right inside there, Panama, all that stuff, to try to cross over the border in Mexico. That's insane. Do you ever understand that the idea of going through Amazon, the Amazon rainforest, right? To go through that place and also try to get up here to America because they know that this place is the land of the free. This idea that there is opportunity here as far as jobs, as far as any way that you could get social mobility, it exists here. Nowhere else in the world is that dense with that opportunity. So that's why people are dying, physically dying to get here. And to me, when I hear this kind of statement, sometimes we forget that other people have other stories, and those other stories are equally valid. I'm not saying, hey, my people also went through slavery. They didn't have anything for like my grandmother only made probably $16,000 in her lifetime. Like that's just how much she brought in as far as income. My mom never even made more than 30 grand a year, and that's like the peak. At the very last point, like in 2020, she made like 30 grand. These are people. These are people coming with their stories as well. So you can't kind of negate this by saying, well, our people went through slavery and that's why we can't pull ourselves up. No, we have to pull ourselves up. That's because they went through slavery. That's because they fought through many evolutions to get here, that it's almost like it's imperative for us to step up in a massive way because we have it easier than they do.
But
hold that thought 1 second. 1 second. We gotta acknowledge the people that support us. So we got some folks here. Don Johnson's getting shout outs. Back ladies in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Still Rocks 33. Yes, sir. You are in here. Appreciate you. TB is in the building. What's up to you, sir? All right. And this one is the legendary Don Johnson. So that's my brother, our brother, Jimmy, over there by the hood. Everybody follow By the Hood. Me and Jimmy have another video because y'all been seeing him on my YouTube page a lot. He's going to keep coming on. I'm going to keep dragging him out. We have wonderful conversations that something I'm dealing with. A lot of my stuff is more strategic and mindset focused around Black wealth and not so much tactics, because that's what you see. And everybody loves the tactics. But if anybody really studies, tactics are cool, but strategy trumps it all. And if you have better mindset, which leads to better strategy, you can do anything. So I know me and Jimmy want to have more conversations about that. All right, Still Rock says freedom and famine. Yeah, that was the doctor. The good doctor was a wonderful orator and wordsmith. Maddox 12, what's up with you? How are you? Oh man, about throwing in the bread. He helping us get some more straps for our boots so we can keep pulling. Gotta give him a double. Debt-free dad's in the building. All the superstars are pulling up. What's up, bro? How are you? Welcome. Oh man, and we got a $3 sticker. Thank you. Appreciate you. Now, Lawrence, you said something I thought that was really, really impactful, right? Really profound. And I say that a lot too. We have more opportunity now than we've ever had before as a people. Our people have suffered and fought to get us this far. Don said that, right? So it's almost like we got to continue to keep fighting, but many people act like it's doomsday. There's nothing else that can be done. We shouldn't go into business. We shouldn't be in politics. We should just, I guess, live off welfare and maybe sell incense and be cool. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I'll speak to it on that. And it I don't know. I might lose followers right quick. I ain't got that many in the first place, but everybody can't come. Like to be honest with you, and that's just the true nature of it. Like there's going to always be there's always going to be that 10%. Like there's always going to be the 10% at the bottom, and those 10% at the bottom. You want to do all you can to help those 10%, but there's always going to be that 10%, right? But I think it's the difference of attacking the people that's in between that. The ones that are actually, there's more than enough. I think our image is completely off as far as what is actually going on, what we're actually doing. I think more people than is being portrayed is actually pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and making it happen. I just think the only thing that's being broadcast, or honestly, is your top 10 and your bottom 10. No one cares about the guy that works, 2 jobs at FedEx and UPS and makes $70,000 a year, paid off his house, paid off car, and living his life that way. No one cares about that in between people. And those are the people that probably need to be focused on a little bit more, because those are the people that are doing the work. Most people are actually lifting themselves up to move forward. I don't think it's as dire as it is, but those that are coming up in this particular economic climate, again, I said I think they're going to face things that I'm glad I'm 40 years old at this time. I'm glad I'm making what I'm making now with the economic climate moving forward. If I was 22, 23, there's more opportunities, but there's also more things that's preventing it, I guess, or more barriers are still going to be there. So
you really think there's more barriers now than when you were 22?
Than when I was 22?
Less barriers.
Yeah.
I think there is. When you're looking at the price of college, when you're looking at, I mean, there's, I guess, for every barrier that you throw out there, there's also an opportunity that's there. So I wouldn't. It's interesting, but I do think what people are dealing with now, because I'm a active duty Marine right now, and hell, I clock in for another job.
What? They're like, I'm a Marine too. What's up? I got out though,
and I clock in for another job, literally in about an hour and a half from now, just because I got time. So why not, right? And I look at what I make on that second job, which I make above the average, meaning income on that second job. And I look at that, and I'm someone that has no credit card debt, that has no car debt, low, like as far as my mortgage is low. And I still look at that paycheck and I'm like, what can I do with this? Like, and I'm looking at that, I'm like, this is good money for 90% of America. And I still would be like, if that's all I had, I would be struggling. When 10, 15, 20 years ago, I would be living high on the hog on that type of money. So I do.
But that's inflation, though. That's I think that's one of those mathematical problems. Like, oh man, I'm making $50,000, $70,000 here. I would be living high on the hog back in the 1980s. But that was the $30,000 was the equivalent back then of $80,000.
But we're talking,
right?
But we're
I'm like, it's all relevant if you do the actual math, and that's why I love that this shirt that I have on is like the math. And for some reason, we neglect math all the time, but it's actually very important, and we have to know what it's like. It doesn't make sense. Like it's our lifestyle. It is our lifestyle that has changed so drastically that we buy into just about everything. I walked into my homeboy's house once, right? He had a wall full of like Jordans that are, mixing pairs of sneakers, whatever he is. It was at his parents' house. It's like we were at his parents' house. He had a wall. Like he don't even live there, but he had the wall.
Wait a minute, yeah. So this is a grown man, 35 plus.
Yeah. He has
he's got a shrine to the Jordans
over there at his parents. Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because our lifestyle has changed. Back in Dr. King's days, I believe the average amount of clothes that you had in a closet was about 4. Literally 4 outfits. You had your church clothes, your school clothes, your work clothes, and maybe your sleep clothes. There was no leisure in between, but now people have closets that are packed to the brim with stuff they barely ever wear, to the point that they have storage down the street where they actually keep stuff in as well. The lifestyle that we're living, the expenses that we have are self-inflicted wounds. Like we do it to ourselves. Even a person making $40,000 a year, which is weird that they'll be making that for 40 years straight, would actually, even after blowing $250,000, would have $230,000 and invested in basically and I'm doing all this math for you guys because I actually did it recently.
I was going to ask, are you doing this in your head?
No. 5,000. It basically ends up being like $5,750 per month. Right? Or per year, not even per month, per year, $5,750 per year for 40 years is equivalent to $1.4 million if invested in index ETF. Like literally the most slow investment you could actually do for 8% historical average, you get 1.4 million. We have no excuse. We overspend money. Like we do this where we show up, we show out.
Hold that thought. Let me do one thing. Romaine's in the building. Gotta say what's up to sis. And that free dad says he's a service as well. Army vet. Thank you for your service, sir. Thank you. But as much as you just brought it up, inflation, right? When I started driving in 1993, gas was about 90 cents. Right now, how much is gas? $3.50. I'm sure that's way higher than the historic average. So the more money we make, and yet, listen, I'm not disputing that we don't waste a lot of it. We blow it. More money to blow. That's a famous song, right? But inflation is through the roof. My baby girl's going to college this year. Thank God she got some scholarships. But I got to get this YouTube popping so I can pay that debt off. and since I'm not out here selling credit schemes and bad stock picks, I don't know if I can get to that 100,000 or 500,000 views and likes and subscribers. So I got to do something. to make sure we can
Only
keep up with the
fans, man.
inflation.
Only fans. You
OnlyFans.
gotta step up, man. You gotta step up.
Oh, man.
No,
All
and I
right.
get that. I get that
Leah's in the building.
100%.
Hold on one second. Leah's in the building. Welcome, Leah. Everybody go follow Leah's perspective as well. Another dope financial creator also. She says her gas is $4.50 through the roof.
Better start walking.
Oh, man, we bringing out all the vets. All right, another Army vet here as well. All right. Salute you for your service too, sir. Jeremiah 29:11. Thank you for joining us. So, yeah, man, like, it's hard out here. It's hard out here.
Life is even harder for other people. Like when you look up like news outside of the US, right? And you really kind of like start paying attention, you find out that other places have even higher inflation. Argentina's nearly hit, well, it hit 100% inflation.
Yeah.
100% inflation back in February. Right. That's insanity, bro. Like,
listen,
Venezuela, we just stopped talking about it since 2018. That's how bad it got.
But let's go back even further, right? Zimbabwe. When Mugabe kicked out all the white folks, the European nations had a fit, and inflation went through the roof. So I'm not oblivious to that. Matter of fact, if we stop comparing ourselves to other Americans and we compare ourselves to the overall world, everybody in America, for the most part, are in the 5% of wealth. And that's from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high. And is there a lot of disparity there? Absolutely. However, I think we got to keep trying. We got to keep on moving up, in my opinion. That's what I believe. So, got a couple more comments. Debt Free Dad jumps in there. By the way, everybody go follow Debt Free Dad as well. He's popping on TikTok and he's doing a lot on YouTube as well. he be coming with some wild stuff. Debt Free, I need to get you on the show as well. So he says, nah, I got a sneaker thing. Shoes are universal sign of broken hood. So subconsciously, buying J's makes some people feel like they're winning. Now, context is everything. Debt Free Dad is an attorney, y'all. So he has more. I ain't saying he rich, but he definitely ain't poor. And so he's been already building himself up by the bootstraps, right? He's been putting in his 10,000 hours in his craft and building a platform and doing other things. So I think what Lawrence is talking about, what does your homeboy do, Lawrence?
No, he's a smart guy, graduated with 2 degrees, and one is computer science and something else. And I think it might have been business, but he's he's a photographer. Like he ended up quitting everything and just becoming a photographer. Now it was, computer science is something else, but he ended up being a photographer.
So is he a superstar photographer or is he just
he's good. He's good. He could probably even make more money in IT, be honest with you. But I'm only using that as just like this ideal that we have so much. It's like it's one thing to have a couple, sneakers, maybe 10. He had a wall. I've never seen that in my life. When you walk through and there's a wall.
Do you think those individuals? Do you think they're the norm, or do you think they're outliers?
As crazy it is, it's more of the norm for the people that I'm from, like from Miami-Dade County, like from Florida, like some people I run into. They typically have a lot of shoes. Enough that they have the closet is a little bit packed. It's a little dense.
See, the people and what I see, just being out and about, and I'm in Portsmouth, Virginia, being out and about, the people that flash their shoes, flash their sneakers and their clothes, those people to me are the outliers in our society, in our community. Those are, I'm working the block. I'm doing that. Most people, that's not most people. I think when you look at how many Black people you deal with on a regular basis, those aren't the normal. Like those,
I think that's a bias though, based off of our own circles. So if I look at my own personal circles,
wait a minute. We talked about the mathing, right?
Yeah, I could toss out a report.
We gotta at least bring some facts, some data, right?
Yeah.
So I just pulled up a data point. Pew Research Center says all Black, the median household income for Blacks U.S. households in 2021 was $46,400. That ain't a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's household. That's not individual. So that's rough. That's rough.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm talking to Don about was that circle that we have that surround us, especially people that went to college. You start seeing the same people around you. Oh, my friends are doing well because you went to college with them. Oh, my peers are doing well. They have jobs because you went to college with them. But what about everybody else that you left behind that didn't really finish high school, that didn't really finish college, that they might have been with you in college, but they kind of disappeared after a while? You don't talk about the details, but a lot of people are struggling out here. And that's the truth of the matter. And I think that's what we miss out on. And to the point, there's a report that was done by McKinsey and Company called the State of Black America in 2019 or something like that. Or maybe it was like a financial report. To that degree, they did all the numbers and they found that we're overrepresented in the lowest income brackets as far as job wise. Majority of the jobs we have are making like 35K, 40K a year, service-oriented jobs, so on and so forth. I worked at FedEx. When you talk about FedEx making 70K, I'm like, that's a lie, my friend. I was sweating at FedEx. I was not making a damn thing, all right? I felt...
Wait a minute. There's some people making 100K at FedEx.
Yeah, man, I don't know how they're doing it, but I was clocking some overtime, and my check was looking kind of sad. That's why I quit. I never went back. It was that bad. So I know how it feels to not have a lot. I know what that is. And a lot of us are struggling with understanding that we need to basically improve our education, get away from structural unemployment, which I think that's where we suffer from, where we just don't have the skills to get into the jobs that would necessitate us getting paid more.
Skills, I would agree. Skills to me is the key to everything. I don't care if it's college. I don't care if it's trade school. I don't care if it's apprenticeships. Whatever it is, you got to learn a skill that's going to be in demand. Plumbing is going to be in demand for quite some time. Electricity is going to be in demand for quite some time. HVAC is going to be in demand for quite some time. And now they're talking about prompt engineers for Chat GPT making $100,000. I can't even get my mind around that. But if people are using it and there's a demand for it, then we got to be looking at it. All right, so there's a couple more things here. Jimmy's chiming in. I think we also live in our bubbles. I spend time in communities here in Philly where people make minimum wage with multiple kids. I can attest to that. They don't waste money on Jordans. They don't have money for them. Right, that's a fact. Just been being in tax account for many years. There's one lady who had 2 kids. And I remember this because she was a client of my dad's years ago. So in the 80s, she was making about $12,000. Had 2 kids. Even in the 80s, that's rough, right? And he says, but listen, she made it. She went to school for nursing, I believe it was. She was bootstrapping, right? She said, I'm not settling for $12,000 a year, $1,000 a month. So if she stayed on that path, she's probably cool now. But again, a lot of people don't have that foresight to say, you know what, I got to sacrifice now to make more a little bit later. But to Jimmy's point, some people just don't got it. And what I mean, got it, mentally, they don't have it. Vision-wise, they don't have it. Spiritually, emotionally, they ain't got it. So what do you do with them?
I think that's what I had a problem with that article that we're talking about, is the fact that we have the educated people, the people that actually had enough time to create that mentality, that security in your head to do something, but they're saying that bootstrap doesn't work or education is not important. And we hear a lot of educated people that actually have degrees say that college is not important. And I'm like, how do you say this? How can you phrase this? How can you do that to your own people? So I look at people, I'm like, come on, guys, we have to do better and really kind of speak to what it is, or speak truth to power, and saying, yeah, some of y'all went to college and y'all blew it. Y'all blew money, y'all was partying, y'all had a good time, but you didn't take it seriously. I didn't take it seriously. That's why I kind of barely scraped by in undergrad, barely scraped by a master's degree. That's literally that was the scenario. I was having a great time. I had no real mentorship. I didn't know what's going on. I was just living my dreams. And I picked up about $80,000 worth of student loan debt. I was paying $1,000 a month on just student loan debt. It's an insane scenario, but I had to make it through. But I'm not going to tell somebody that college doesn't work because I didn't take it seriously. I'm not gonna rephrase it as it's a bad thing or working is somehow the detriment of us all. Like, no, it's an opportunity for us to change. And I feel for a lot of people that really started with a lot of nothing, at the same time decide to say, you know what, I'm gonna take this extra opportunity that exists. And there's urban leagues that offer free skills and just improvements. There's even, you could send your kid to do what VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, where they could learn how to do taxes, and then they could go back to the community and help the community do more taxes for free without going to a grifter. Maybe that motivates them to go like, hey, I might be an accountant, I might be a tax person, who knows? But there's opportunities here where we could do the best we can with the things that we have, and that's what we need to focus on as much as possible.
I would agree, right? Personally, I taught at VITA for a very short period of time, but VITA is dope. I mean, I even promote VITA as much as possible because they will do your taxes for free. And for a lot of low-income people, that makes sense. It doesn't make sense for them to come and tell them, you know, and pay my fee. And some of my financial friends were like, "Come on, why do you promote VITA? That's taking money out of your pocket." I say no, because it gives me more time to work with the more complicated and more sophisticated tax people. And it's a benefit to the community, because I think sometimes we get so caught up with the idea of chasing money that we forget about our humanity a lot of times. And I think that's sad.
Not that I disagree, but I think that you have to get to a certain point where you can focus on the rest of humanity. When the first is coming and you don't got rent money, it's hard to focus on what my neighbors are doing. It's hard to focus on the rest of the world. At a certain point in time, you gotta take care of your four walls before you can focus on humanity. A lot of people, as we mentioned, are just out here just eating, just like going from one day to the next, like how I'm gonna make it to the next day. So it's hard to focus on humanity when you don't have it.
There's a lot of that is a mindset for a lot of people. I agree. But what I would push back and say to you, and I know this isn't you, but for other people, if they could take themselves out the picture and figure out what value they're bringing to the world, they would recognize that they're planting seeds and they're going to sow those seeds later. And, you know, I've always been like this, but it further got magnified when I got a mentor who taught me that giving equals receiving to the 100th power. And he would always say, if you are down, if you are broke, one of the best things you can do is go give. It's counterintuitive. I get it. It's very counterintuitive, but the feeling you get from giving somebody something that really needs it, if you do it for the right reasons, could be magnificent. Because not only are you sowing a seed in yourself, you're sowing a seed in them, it's coming back to you, then you can start looking at the world a little bit different. And I say all that to say because we're kind of stuck in this cycle of the way we're thinking. It's like dog eat dog. We become very Americanized, in my opinion. And for Black folks, y'all might disagree with this, the goal should not be to become Americanized, because America is hyper individualistic. And I feel like I'm ranting right now. The goal for us, in my opinion, is to bootstrap, but again, to make sure we're pulling as we're climbing. And that's not necessarily something that is preached American-wise, in American fashion or American culture.
And it's not something that people readily understand. And I'll give two quick stories about it. Back in 2012, you know, I didn't have a lot of money. I got out of college, and I had to go find a job. I was making $23K per year. That's about $1,000 a month. I know that because they only paid us once a month in the state of Florida. It was damn near like the worst thing to happen to you. Like once a month, you see one check. You're like, that's it? I'm not getting another check. So at home, which is like at the time we were staying in the quad, basically 4-bedroom, 4-bath. All my friends were there, and they'll be saying like, "Hey, we don't have enough money to invest." Oh yeah, some everybody else is against us, so on and so forth, right? And one day I went back to my room, and I turned on like Mint.com. I went to the budgeting thing. I started tracking it for like 3 months. I found I was spending on average $360 per month on food. At the time in 2012, that was a lot of money, because most families could actually survive off of maybe $400, and a family of 4 survive off like $400 a month, so on and so forth. So I did the numbers for the rest of my buddies, and ultimately, in the entire household, we were spending $2,400 on food. It's not like we were eating anything like Red Lobster, no top meals. It wasn't Top Chef out here. We weren't going to, like we were snapped pictures on Instagram of some food. That's not what it's all about. We were just eating randomly all the time. And that cost was $2,400 a month. It's not like we didn't have the money. We just were merely mismanaging it. At the time, it was weird. And I try to explain to them more and more why we need to kind of lean into personal finance. They just kind of they didn't care for it. They didn't understand it. But on the times that I had off, I would go back home, which was like I call it my staycation. But I'd go into the high schools and the middle schools, and we basically talk about personal finance with the kids. And yet, it was the most enriching thing I ever done. To your point, that it felt good. It helped me kind of like craft my voice a lot more. So when I went to other job interviews, I was more comfortable in crowds and scenarios and so on and so forth. That actually ended up getting me $32,000 increase or $32,000 in 6 months. And after 6 months after that, I got $64,000. So all these little things,
they add up.
Like, everybody didn't want to listen. I'm like, yo, we can actually give back. So I got to the DMV. This is the third story. Got to the DMV, and we linked up with like NABA. I think the engineers, the black lawyers. It was like one of those like powwows. We get there, people are spending on drinks, people are spending on food. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm in community where people making money. We're gonna make big differences. And one of the young ladies says, hey, we got a community service project. We need to help kids with their SAT prep. And can we get some volunteers? Crickets. I had my hand up quick. I'm like, oh, shoot, let's do this. Let's get this thing going. And my girlfriend at the time, she also raised her hand because she was with me anyway. So she may have to go roll with it. But everybody else just didn't have the time. And that's when it taught me the important lesson. We talk a big game about community, but man, are we absent in the actual moments that when it counts.
I would agree. And that's not to shame anybody, right? Because everybody's got their different situations. Like people try to shame me. Kamar, you don't come out anymore. You don't volunteer. I'm like, you just don't see me volunteer. You don't know what I'm doing. But I would agree. We definitely need to get more active together, communal, and really show unity to a lot of people, because everybody's watching to a certain degree. And if we're always talking about Lambos, Range Rovers, jewelry, trips, that's all we're going to get. But what about like all the other people like you're talking about that don't have that opportunity? I'll talk about Jimmy from By the Hood, right? One thing I love about Jimmy is he walks his talk, because he's got some other comments and we're going to bring him up here. This man and his partner, Corey, shout out to Corey. Gotta give the horns to Corey in his absence. They go into prisons and talk to the people. I ain't going into prison. I might go, maybe, but I've worked in a prison one time. I used to repair dental equipment. When they closed the door, when I came in, oh man, I was like, I'm cool. Scared me straight. I'm like, oh man, I can't be around here with all these dudes. Ain't no women in there except the guards. Like, nah, I'm cool. But they go to the prisons. Not only do they go to the prisons, they go where the youth are all the time. Pay, no pay, usually no pay. And they just give. They do a camp. Everybody, matter of fact, they do a camp every year. I try to help out as much as I can. They do a camp every year, a financial literacy camp for the children. They have people all over the world now. So, and I know the camp is coming, and I know the camp is coming up soon. So stay on the look, stay tied in with By the Hood. Let's jump into, because I know there's a couple other comments we got to get right. I know Jimmy said, he said also, it's easy to look globally, but if I'm living below the poverty level in Philly, I don't care what is going on globally. I get that, but I also think that's part of our problem, is that we're so hyper locally focused. And I know that's human nature. But if we begin to look globally and see that what we call poverty, 9 times out of 10 is luxury for them, it might help us get another outlook on life, which could then help us expand and do more. What do y'all think about Jimmy's comment?
I think it's human nature to to look within your own circle. What's going on with you're dealing with? Like, yeah, like I like probably same as Lawrence. Like I've done my time in those deserts, some other countries, and yeah, it is completely different. Like poverty does look different over there than poverty does look here. But at the same time, does it make you thankful that you live in this country and you deal with poverty here? Yes. I'd rather be American poor than fucking Afghanistan poor. Like negative. Like I'll take American poverty any day of the week over some of these other countries. But that doesn't change that my focus, understanding what's out there and what everyone else is dealing with is great. But my focus is still going to be with the poverty that's at hand. Like the meal that I need that's in front of me. Like I can be like, yeah, all I can eat is McDonald's, and I can be thankful for that McDonald's burger, or I can try to get more, or I can always look at it and be like, well, guess what? That kid in Zimbabwe doesn't have this at all. Like, it may be true, but at the same time, like, I think your focus is always going to be internal to your household and what's on your left and right.
Yeah, I'd say this. I think maybe you're right. The idea that you don't have to look all the way to another country. You could even look down the street in our own country. I've been to places in Mississippi that I'm like, yo, this reminds me of Haiti, and I grew up in Haiti. I'm like, this is not it. This is not where you want to be.
I was going to ask
like,
you that.
This is not where you want to be. You know, this is not the way you want to live. So for me, I've seen it. Like, well, my mom couldn't take care of. My dad left my mom, so she couldn't take care of me and my sister. So she sent me to live in Haiti when I was 11 months old. I actually didn't know I never saw my mom until like probably 6 or 7. And that was my first interaction with her, like literally. I didn't see my dad until around the same time too. So for me, growing up in Haiti in that place, we didn't have no running water. The idea of running water didn't exist. We had to go get water. We had to go warm up water in a pot to actually use to clean ourselves with, to brush teeth, to just do about anything. We didn't.
I did that in Philly.
Yeah, like we didn't have like this electricity that's constant. This thing, any given time, the electricity would be gone. It was roving electricity. At any point, it'll just go. So if you were watching a movie, it get cut off. If you were playing a video game, you better release the heck out of that video game because it's gonna be gone in like an hour or two. So this idea of all these things that we have and we take for granted here, I think it would help if you look at other people so you could gain some form of gratitude, so you could get out that negative mental space to think that the world is against just you. The world is challenging for a lot of people. You just happen to be in a challenging moment. Doesn't mean that your life will always be this way. That's what I learned from my time in Haiti. When I look at other people now, I'm like, I could see people that's really, getting it up in the morning at 5 a.m. in the morning. That's when people clock in. We clock in. That means you wake up, you start really getting out there by 7 or 8, everybody's out the door. Nobody's sleeping in. There is no morning person. That don't exist. Like it's a get out and go get some food, or you starve or die. That's why I look at people. Like you have to look at other people to at least gain some perspective of where you are.
You better get out and get something. Get up, get out and get something. I mean, that's real. Lars, real quick, when did you move back to the States?
I was lied to. I moved back here when I was 9. My aunt says, "Hey, you're gonna go to Florida for Disney World." It was a lie. She just sent me back to go live with my mom.
Well, I mean, I guess
that was a setup.
She was like, your mom will take you to Disney World.
Nah, because I met my mom. I didn't like her, so I was like, "That's a no." She's like, wait, nah. She's like, "But there's Disney World." I'm like, you know what? That sounds like, for a 9-year-old, Disney World sounds like a deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, I saw it on TV. I thought this was like, this is where you want to be.
Well, dang, I did so many questions just ran through my mind right now. There's so much, but I know we ain't got time to go into it. What do you feel is the biggest difference? Well, let me back up. I see you the other day you said you were being attacked on Twitter for some of your commentary.
Battle in the game. I don't have a problem with it.
Right. Why do you think, because these are other Black folks in America that have a difference of opinion and problem with your commentary, why do you think that is?
I think we've absorbed, to your point, this idea of Americanism, this self-entitlement, and it's layered with a lot of issues. what we're basically as African Americans or Black people, driving towards, even Caribbean people or even immigrants from other African nations are coming here. They're driving towards this narrative that's making them weaker psychologically. It's giving them anxiety. It's giving them stress. It's giving them less perspective. And I think that's the problem. I've never known Black people to be this weak. In my life, as far as I've ever known it, Black people are very strong, very resilient, very much like I grew up from a lineage of people that decided, that, hey, it's better to fight and die than to live in bondage. I love that story. That thing, I don't know what it did to me as a kid. It just made me look around and like, you know what? This is who we really are. That we were to die than actually sit back and wait for some sleight of hand to change our lives and our narratives. Haitian people are at the time, and this is another part of that story too, we're just Black people. They fought for all Black people for as much as they knew them to be. They didn't have a nation. They didn't have that concept of a togetherness. Everybody was coming from different tribes, different ideologies, different perspectives. And they looked around and says, we're going to fight for all Black people, period. And they only after that they won their independence that they named themselves Haitians and they invited everybody else to come. To the point that Simon Boulevard from South America came to Haiti for support to actually free South America from that level of bondage. That's why now countries like Colombia, I think Venezuela, and 2 other countries as well have the Haitian flag embedded in their flag. Literally embedded. It's not even a lie. It's just like it's etched in there because that's what we do.
But
that's
not
who
only
we
that,
are.
But not only that, right? Not only that, it just amazes me how Black folks living in the United States of America take this Black is only for the United States, right? When you go to Haiti, when you go to Jamaica, there's documented instances where Black people in Haiti fought for us. After the War of Independence in Haiti, when they got their freedom, it became a haven, like you just said, for Black people all over the place. But then we have this very Americanized view of Black folks. It really confuses me. But as you said, there's a time right now that we're kind of weak. We're pushing back against education. We're pushing back against college, and it's watering us down. And I don't think many people realize it.
Yeah, the idea of Americanism it's very odd. It's a very odd thing, and I don't necessarily like it at all. I think we're leaning too much left, and I don't know if it's left. It's just that we're leaning one way about who we are and what we are capable of, and we're almost like we're stripping ourselves from any accountability, any functionality, any stake, and that's the definition of human nature. Your choice matters. Everything that you decide to do with your life matters 110%. And if every day you wake up and says, well, somebody else has to make the decision for me, you strip yourself of your own humanity. And that's not what we do. That's not who we are. I've never known Black people to be this weak. And I say that with all the conviction in my heart. I just never known it to be that way. And there's a lot of people overseas right now dying to make it out of any situation, to feed their families, to assess themselves, or even put themselves in a position that they can actually monicum wins. Any level of win matters to us.
Now, Don, I see you over there. You got something on your mind. I can see it. I can see it's bubbling. What you got to say, brother?
I'm not seeing it. To be completely honest with you,
You're not seeing what?
Like the weakness, we're not getting it. I'm not seeing it. Like those individuals, the down and trodden, the all I do was wake up every day, smoke weed, sit in my house, wait for my welfare check. Those are the bottom of the bottom that I feel like, at least me, I don't interact with on a regular basis. The people I interact with on a daily basis that I see at the grocery store, at the gas station, at where I work at, what I see are people, hardworking people, doing what they need to do to try to survive. Yeah, they're not making bukus of money, but at the same time, they're not down and try. They're doing what they feel is the most that they can do for their particular level, particular skill level. Yes, everyone should try to get farther and farther ahead in the game, but the high level weakness, those are outliers. Those are not the everyday Black person that you deal with. Those are the everyday Black person that the media wants to portray, to show you, but that's not it. Like across the street, there's a dad, 3 little girls, mows his lawn, goes to work, come home, do his thing. Next door neighbor, the same. Most people, most black people I interact with are not, and I'm not saying I'm like where I don't live in. You can look up Portsmouth, Virginia if you want to. You can stop by if you want to, but make sure
man, we got location and everything on downtown.
What I'm saying is that the large majority of black people are doing the best that they can at that part. That bottom 10%, those I don't do nothing. I don't do anything good for my family. I don't do anything good for the community. Those are the 10 that can't come. Those are the 10% that, hey, you stay here, we all going somewhere else. That's them. But I don't think they're the majority of people. I just think that's the majority of people that are being highlighted.
You ever heard of the soft life? like there's an entire term for it too. There's black luxury right now of people that do make more than the median. People that's making 70K, 100K a year that are pushing for a certain. And when I mean like this weakness, it's just like this material weakness that we just want to buy into luxury, that we just want to buy into just the glamour of it all, buying, expensive cars, the clothes, I have to show out. I have to travel to a place I've never known about until my favorite celebrity just went there. That's why they're all showing up in Tulum right now. Why? Because they heard somebody else went to Tulum. No cultural exploration, no true understanding. It's just everybody else is going there because, hey,
we got black Mexicans. Come on.
No, I'm not saying there's no black Mexicans, but they're not going out there for the black Mexicans. They're going for the photo op, man. And I think that's where our problem is. We're all trying to we're window shopping our lifestyles on social media. And I think that's part of the problem. Like to your point, the people that should be elevated is the hard workers, but we look at them, we're like, they call them basic. They call them whack. They call them like whatever, mediocre. They say all types of things about it. And we don't, bus drivers, whatever it is, they don't look at them in any type of way besides in a negative sphere. And the problem is not with you. Right, our generation, we're good. We're fine. We're already set in our ways. The problem is that with the next generation looking at them. My goddaughter never worked a day in her life. The first job she got because her mom forced her to go. Before she even went day one, she called me and says, "Hey, Godfather, like, hey, I'm having mental health issues because I don't want to go to work." I'm like, "You never clocked in one hour yet." Like, I had to get her to go to work. But in the back of my mind, she's watching all this stuff and she's absorbing these messages. Form of media, and you have kids now, they don't know how to drive. They don't have the drive to even drive themselves to any place because everything gets delivered at home. Well, why do I need to go drive to go buy anything? Amazon Prime delivers, Uber Eats delivers, everything delivers. So we're creating a new generation of people that don't have enough gumption or sticking point, whatever it is, to survive into the next wave. And that's our problem.
I would agree.
I agree there.
I agree with both points. And just to be clear, no, black people as a whole are not weak, but I do believe we're becoming more and more Americanized. I mean, if y'all know I'm a history buff, right? What happened when desegregation happened? What happened to A.G. Gaston's hotels when desegregation happened? Where did they go?
People decided to stop going to those. People started.
They decided to stop going. Why? Why? No, not like the ICE is better. Like, I say it all the time. People don't like that I say it, but I say Willie Lynch has done a wonderful job of lynching our minds. And yes, I know Willie Lynch is a fictional character. However, the antics, the outcomes are real. And so they stopped going to A.J. Gaston's hotels because they wanted to go to white-owned establishments. And we still are seeing this to this day, and it's still magnified even more. It's like they say every generation is getting worse. King, Garvey, X, Evers, they were all out there putting it on the line. And no, it wasn't all of us. But damn, it was a lot of us. And this was before social media was there. And I do want to be, I don't want this to be like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. There are a lot of young folks getting after it too, right? BLM got busy. I know they had money issues. Do not confuse.
They got busy, all right.
No. Hold on. No. Don't do that. Don't confuse the movement from the nonprofit that was created because they're two different things. And again, we must look for context in everything that we do. So, all right, let's get to a couple of these more comments, and then I'll let you guys go. I know y'all hungry. I know I am. I ain't here yet. All right, so let's see. I know I missed a couple. Nia says other countries' gas is more expensive. It is. I never forget the first time I went to Aruba. Gas was out the chain. All right, so also it's easy to look globally, but if I'm living below, all right, I did that already. Sorry. Nia says that's what I did. Single parent with a high school diploma, went to school. I had to work 2 jobs while getting my master's. It cost me QT, quality time, with my child though. Yeah, but I bet she appreciates it now, or at least I hope she does. All right, Maddox Wells says not ranting, speaking the truth. All right, I appreciate that. Because y'all know I can go on a good rant. I don't want to bore y'all to death. All right. Jimmy says this is a nuanced conversation. Yes, it is, brother. I can name 5 instances off the top of my head where we bootstrapped and built thriving communities only to be burned to the ground because of terrorism. So I want to talk about that because what you say is true. But most of the times those happen pre-1965. There was one instance, because I know he's going to say this move, happened in Philadelphia in 1985. Crazy. And there's still other things happening. But when has there been a time outside of MOVE where we saw a mass movement of Black people working together, pulling the money together, pulling their political power together to make real change? Right?
Tulsa Real Estate Fund.
Dr. Umar out here.
All right, listen, y'all. This is only entertainment.
It's only entertainment.
I can't really comment on that for a lot of reasons, but
okay, yeah.
Cool. Nah. Listen, y'all can say what y'all want.
Nah, but he's right though. I think there's a lot of times we remember the past and we just live there, versus we have to actually be moving towards the future. And we haven't done it recently. Like, I get it. We failed on our face and things happened in the past. But even in those moments, they did things that in our minds would be inconceivable. In a time period where people were getting lynched, they were working together to create these communities, right? In a time period, it's not the same in 2023. Right now, it's not the same. So what's the excuse of us now working together and getting it started all over again?
But do you think that's because the way communities are built nowadays, our communities are not necessarily who lives literally to my left and right. That may not be my community. We are building. You can build communities, like you can build communities online. You can build communities through networking. Like we're watching other Black people build their own communities at a certain level, but it's just different. It's not, hey, let's all move to X, Y, and Z, and that's our community. There are people building different levels of community online and different platforms of that nature.
Yeah, we got to be online, on air, and in the community, as WURD says here in Philly, the only Black talk station in the state of Pennsylvania. To your point, Don. No, we don't have community the way we used to. I don't know that we need to, though. If we look at the Asians, where do they live? And take out Chinatown, because the majority of them do not live in Chinatown.
Yeah, they don't. Not, at least not anymore, not since the 80s.
But guess what? They still work together. They figure out ways to work together. That brings them together. There's one of my OGs by the name of Fred Johnson. He always says, the strength of the wolf is in the pack. Y'all might hear me say that. I always say that to give love to Fred. But he always tells this story. He was really big in the distribution of Kimi oil back in the 80s. I don't know if any of y'all remember that. He tells a story about the time, because he was buying Kimi oil from the Koreans because they controlled it. Imagine that. Black folks buying oil that Black folks use from non-Black people. But I digress. Right. He tells the story when he was with them and they were going out to dinner. They literally drove 20 miles out of their way to go to a Korean-owned restaurant. That was the only one in the area. So they didn't care about convenience. It was more about supporting their own, no matter what. And we used to have that. And I know that's what Lawrence is talking about, not to speak for him, but a lot of that is not there anymore.
Yeah,
and we need it.
I would say this. I think we also do a interesting job of trying to speak for other communities without actually really knowing them. I think a lot of those,
A lot of times, yes.
yeah, a lot of those communities themselves, they're not operating in that idea of this utopian kumbaya where they're working with each other. No, they're just moving in a way that they have an accepted ethos about them, right? A subculture, an idea, a rationale, which they're working towards without actually working together. For example, in Florida, or you probably call it South America at this point, where the Hispanics run and roam, a lot of times it's not about the Nicaraguans going to the Cubans or they what. No, in the end of the day, what ends up happening is that you find that Hispanics, the big thing about their culture is family, getting together. On any given Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, there's a get together at somebody's house. There's always going to happen, and in order for you to be Hispanic or Cuban or Dominican, you have to have a home. And by proxy of getting a home, they're feeding into building wealth. So their ethos is by pure ethos of getting together all the time as a family, it necessitates them to have a home. And this is why you're seeing Hispanic home ownership go up, up, and up beyond the point where we kind of like, it's impossible to buy a home. Like they're looking at it like we have to buy a home because it's part of who we are. So when we look at even Asian communities themselves, they're not necessarily going to Asian, Korean place, to buy some groceries for sure, but they're not necessarily, commuting to just go eat at the Korean restaurant unless it's good. What they're doing now in 2020 and beyond is they're making sure that their kids are going to school. They're making sure that their kids are getting the right grades. They're making sure that their kids are actually attending, the right college, so they to actually get into the right position so they can make even more money. That's what they're doing. They're not looking at each other. I have to go buy at so-and-so Ling Ling's because she has the dry cleaning over here. They're not doing that right now. They're looking at each other and says, we know what time it is, and what time it is. I need to make sure my kid is the best in class so they could actually hyper compete at a higher level. I think that's what we're missing out on. We're thinking that everybody else is they're talking to our kids at 5 years old about personal finance. No, they're not. They're not doing that. They're making sure their kids are getting better grades in school, talk about English, math, social studies, whatever it is, or even getting into other kind of like extracurricular activities, because that's going to give them the leg up. That's what we need to adopt in our minds. Better ethos, in my opinion.
So I will go to better ethos, and I will also accept your point about over-romanticizing a group of people. But what I will say is you can over-romanticize a people, but there are certain things that you can see. For example, when many Asians, Chinese, Vietnamese, Koreans, when they come to this country, what do? A lot of times they live together. What do many Latin American people, when they come to this country, what do? They live together. They share what? The most expensive expense or most expensive cost that any family is going to have, housing, right? You talked about it as well, getting together as a family. So the one thing that we disavow, they do a lot of times, right? You can see that because you can see there's more than 2, 3 people living in a household. There's typically more. And I'm not trying to typecast a people. You can see it, but what do they do a lot of times? Somebody moves out, they get a home, they make it viable for somebody else to come over, and they share space. That's actually something Black people used to do a long time ago, and we lost it. We had intergenerational living.
I would say that's actually the norm around the world. Intergenerational living is more normal around the world than it is.
But I'm talking about here.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like when they show up, though, like I show up here, like Haitian Americans, Jamaican Americans, so on and so forth. They show up here. It's not like they're going in proximity to each other because we speak the same language. So where do you think we're going to end up? We're going to end up closer to each other because that's the way we're going to communicate better. At the same time, we're coming from places where, to your point, that intracommunal living is the norm. Where I came from Haiti, like there's like I thought life was always around like 10 people in the house.
Right.
Like that's grandma, grandpa, some uncles or aunties, so on and so forth, cousins. So like this is how we live. Only in America in the last 40 years that we've hyper situated this single nuclear family to live by themselves.
But what did you say though?
Huh?
What did you say?
I thought it was the oddest thing ever. I'm like, yo, this is wild.
No, but you also said we become weaker. And so
yeah, because of
it, we become Americanized. So what I'm saying is Black folks need to fight against that as much as possible. There's going to come a time, I'm actually facing it now, and I've kind of went through before. I have older parents. My mother had a fire. She came to live with me. I actually didn't want her to leave. She left. Guess what? She now makes my life even more difficult because she moved really out of the way. Had she stayed here with me, it would be much simpler.
And
but guess what?
Too. It'd be cheaper for the family.
Somewhat, yeah. But guess what? She might have to come back at some point, right? And I'm cool with that. It'll be an adjustment, but you know, those are the things that we have to look at. What would it look like for brothers and sisters instead of moving out at 18 on their own as they buy a duplex together, right? And it becomes family property. And then maybe leave it to the next generation or figure out other income producing ways with the property. There's so many ways, but at the end of the day, we got to think differently about what we're approaching. And I think you can learn from other ethnicities, right? All right, let's get to this. So we got that. All right, Jimmy says, I just feel like those of us who have resources need to work with those in our community that don't. 31% of Black families in Philly live in poverty and have no boots. Again, agreed. What, any of y'all got anything on that?
But they got sneakers. Let's be real. I'm just being like, come on, let's be real. Let's be real. Y'all be acting like people don't have like anything. Y'all be acting like people don't have anything on their feet. They're walking barefoot. Like we got other things.
All right, Jimmy said he's gonna bring me to the next one. Depending on where we going, brother. I got kids. Yeah, but if we're all right, so Jimmy says again, yeah, but if we're struggling, I don't have to look globally. I don't have the time. I'm trying to feed my kids alone. Again, I will push back on that as well. I was a single parent. I know what it means to be struggling. Shoot, some days I'm still struggling, right? But struggling, it was just me. I didn't have any other help or any other resources. I still look globally. But again, to give Jimmy kudos, Jimmy will also say we're all, I'm trying to think of the word he uses, privileged. I was blessed to have parents who were college educated. I was blessed to have mentors who were college educated. So I can't just sit here and act like I just did this all on my own. I am not self-made. For the record, I think self-made is probably one of the dumbest sayings ever. But
thanks.
I will say again that what they instilled in me was to look at other things and not just to be so focused and being down on a moment. So what do y'all think about what Jimmy said?
I got a thought about it. I think the way that we phrase things, like for example, that's this parent, right? That's, you know, single parent struggling to feed their kids, so on and so forth. Sometimes you have to know which generation you're in. Sometimes you're gonna be the stepping stool for the next one. I think a lot of us think we're gonna be the ones to live out the generational wealth dream. I think that's also part of our problem. Sometimes you just gotta know that my kid's gonna be better off than me, period. It's not going to be about me. It's about me setting up the next generation and the next generation after that. That's the goal. That's what my grandmother did technically when she, you know, she was a migrant farmer at some point. Then she moved to the city. And why? Because she felt she's going to give more opportunities to her kids. She struggled there for sure, but she did provide more educational opportunities for my mom and her six siblings. Afterwards, my mom traveled to America for more opportunity because she felt, hey, this place is not going to give me a job or any upward mobility, so I'm going to have to struggle somewhere else. Sometimes you just have to know which generation you're in, and you have to just accept that you're part of the long chain that's going to create opportunity for the future. And I think we're so selfish now to just think that we're going to be the ones to ride around in the Range Rover whipping wheelies on the side with Jay-Z and so on. So it's like, come on. Sometimes you just got to like, this is why you never see me dressing ostentatiously, or I think that's the word. English is my third language. It is what it is. But you're not gonna see me kind of flexing on people. That's just not my thing. I personally just want to create opportunities in which I live comfortably enough that I could feed myself, but I'm actually provide more opportunity for other people down the line. That's what I want to do. Gotcha. And I think if we live that way, if we really absorb that ethos, we'll start seeing a lot of change in our community.
So now I gotta ask, but I want to guess first. So you said you speak 3 languages. I'm guessing English.
Yes.
French.
Creole or French.
Yeah.
And Spanish.
Haitian Creole and French. So that's the three. I could read two others, Spanish and Portuguese.
Okay, but you weren't speaking Spanish on Haiti?
No, I didn't speak Spanish in Haiti. I know
a lot of people. I know a lot too. That's why I asked.
Yeah, some people did. For some reason, I always felt it was weird I don't know, Spanish, especially in like Miami. It's like it felt like it was forced upon me, so I decided not to. But it turns out my grandmother, for the most part, I didn't understand her growing up. I just thought it was just because I had a kid brain. It was like, hey, I didn't understand my grandmother. But she actually grew up in the DR side. She was Black Dominican. Right. When she got here, her language was all types of messed up. So I always thought she was just, I literally just thought grandma was talking, like I didn't know what it was. Gotcha. But I also saw her watching telenovelas and so on and so forth. She was cracking up, or even like English stuff. And that's how I decided to learn as well. Like if she could catch jokes, understand different philosophies or different like nuances, so on and so forth, we all have the ability to understand each other. So that's how I learned how to speak English, by watching TV.
Gotcha. Now, Don, did you have anything to say about Jimmy's comment?
Not for the most part. I do. Like I said, I think we did touch on this though, but I do think I just think that's human nature. Gotcha. to worry about the threat that's closest to the boat.
Gotcha. All right, so let's get to this. I have to respect our enemy's game plan. Yes, indeed. All right, thank you for saying that about the movement. Michael Dennis, where you been, brother? Welcome. Good to see you, sir. All right. So Nia says she does not appreciate it. She has stated and preferred the time. I think I lost where that came in at, Nia. Yeah. I've lost where that's at. Help me out, sis. All right, well, listen, we've been here on quite some time. I want to know, though, before we go, what have you all done to educate yourselves financially? And what are 2 or 3 things you would suggest for the rest of the community to do? Don, I want to get you first.
What I would say is I would start early, as far as hopefully if in the best case scenario, you start well before you even decide to walk out of your parents' house to go to college or trade school. And I think you need to be intentional, like intentional about building wealth, moving forward financially from the very beginning versus waiting till it ends. I think, you get people 40, 45, and they're like, oh, now let me get ready for retirement and stuff like that. When if you would have thought about that 20, 25 years ago, would have been a lot easier for yourself. Myself, as far as what I do, I'm an avid reader. I, at the same time, reader, podcaster. I actually I'll probably listen to your podcast tonight there, Lawrence, as far as the new download. Financial literacy space as a whole, you need discernment. You need to be able to, I think you need to read the books, the basic books, your start off, your greatest man, the richest man in Babylon, the Dave Ramsey. You need to read those basic ones because if not that dude. Nonetheless, I'm saying he helps a lot of people, but
it's
I don't
only
think
entertainment.
If you don't start with like the books and stuff like that, you'll find yourself in the YouTube rabbit, the Twitter rabbit, and you're out here now, starting a business, you're out here, getting business funding. You ain't even got a business. You out here signing up for this LLC, you buying this course from this dude that's telling you how to do X, Y, and Z. I think you have to start early, often, and use discernment about the information that you take in. There's a lot of scammers out here that you need to avoid because they're going to put you in a bigger hole in the back end.
One question real quick. How does a young person or any person develop discernment?
Honestly, I think for me, the way I've done it, I feel like I think reading, to be honest, is probably the best route, because I think it's in a weird way, I think some things that are put down when someone takes the time to write and publish a hard copy book from people of the past that have been written, that's been around for a long period of time, I feel like it provides a little bit better information. And then obviously you also have your professional level schooling as well. Like you're not going to sit in a finance 101, or you're not going to sit in an accounting class and someone's, shooting some stuff off the hip that they found on YouTube. So I think education and solid education, regardless if that's in a classroom setting and or your own personal education, it needs to be repetitive. It needs to be consistent and over time. Like, you are never going to stop learning. So I think that helps with discernment. It's sometimes where you can, after a certain point in time, it's easy. Like, you sit down and you listen to it and you be like, this guy's an idiot. What he's saying doesn't make any sense. After years of actually educating yourself on that particular topic.
Well said, sir.
It's like a professional out here, man. This is I need to learn from him.
All right. Mike says, good show. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I try. Again, I know a lot of my stuff is not necessarily tactic driven. I'm talking more to mindset and more to strategy for us to do better collectively and individually. I think you can do both. Now, Nia said, all right, she was talking about, she said her daughter doesn't probably sacrifice her, doesn't appreciate her sacrifice. She might not now. I think she's still younger. Give her another decade. Come back to her. All right. So left field, $3 super chat. Thank you. Y'all had the super chats rolling. Thank you for that so much. All right, and Maddox 12 says, not a fan of Ramsey either. Yeah, I'm cool on ball. Now, Lawrence, same question for you. What brought you to be such a financial education guru? Actually, I shouldn't even use the word guru because I use it very negatively. Yes. What made you a financial education advocate? How did you get to that space?
First thing, I remember people always say, hey, if the cup is the cup half full or half empty? I'm like, nah, it doesn't matter if you're thirsty, just drink. I think a lot of people make it too hard, too difficult, too complicated, where the truth is always a lot simpler, and that opportunity is always pretty much there. The first time I was confronted with those ideas of 2012, when people were saying, hey, you're a black man, you can't make it. You know, when you're surrounded by people that tell you can't, for some reason, I was one of the people that just shook my head and like, why can't I? Like, why can I not figure it out? Why can I not just apply myself? And I think that's what really jump-started me. That ex-girlfriend that I had that told me I'll never be anything. I'll never be a millionaire. I'll never do this. I thought to myself, like, but what if though? Wait,
you didn't tell us that. So you had a boo that said,
oh yeah, I took her to a nice place finally when I was able to get enough credit card space to do it. They showed up. Like, I didn't even have no real money. Like, I showed up and she derided me, man. She was like, I think she was having a bad day. Eventually she explained that, but she was just trying to like break me down psychologically because of it, just to make me feel bad. Because she felt bad. She just wanted the company to feel bad about the scenario. And she felt that was the best way to accomplish it, by telling me that it's impossible to, one, be happy, to be financially stable, and also even to become a millionaire. And I said, well, technically, it might be improbable, but it's not impossible. And that was the biggest thing. That's the difference between those words. So I went back home.
Recognize you were a high value man.
Oh, yeah, probably didn't. Not like my wife. My wife, man, she showed up. I was making $70K. She was like, fine with me, and now we're good. Like, wife is on point with it. So I never felt. I just felt in that moment that people just really did not wanted to believe anymore, and I just wanted to find ways, some universal approach, and this is why I created that website, the Neighborhood Finance Guy, where I'm jotting down my journey from negative $125,000 to $1 million in about 11 years. I first thought it was going to take 20 years. Then I was like 17. But it actually is taking me and my wife 11 years to get there. Basically, next year we'll be millionaires. So I'm doing that because I want people to see a blueprint in which we never saw it before. A lot of people become millionaires, but they never tell you exactly how. And they tell you kind of like platitudes about what they did. But I wanted to show people step by step it's possible. And this is how you get there. I think another thing that I learned years ago from my aunt, and I didn't respect then because I was a kid, just like like her daughter was. As a kid, you don't care for it, but it ended up being very important. You can probably click off that little subscribe thing. You know, I'm subbing, bro. But still, yeah. So my aunt said, "Hey, write down your goals," and I think a lot of people, we miss that because it sounds pretty lame. It's like the lamest thing you tell a kid: write down your goals. Like, what's that gonna do for me? But you'll find a lot of people don't have any type of real goals in their lifetime. So write down your 5, 10, 20-year goals, share it with your significant other, share it with your family. You can even make it a family like activity with your kids to see what their goals are, trying to motivate them to start generating different ideas, and even talk to your parents as well, because they probably don't have a lot of goals too. So the more and more we talk, we discuss, if we change that language around money, or around our aptitude in life, the more we see that, hey, there's ways that we could get there. As far as traveling, as far as buying homes, as far as even deciding as a family to build a business. All of this is possible if you talk about it, but a lot of people are avoiding it, and that's what I try to do now with my website. As long as it's possible, you can scroll all the way down. You see every year from 2012, like, yeah, from the negative all the way to the positive, tracking every year. I started doing it monthly as of 2017 or something. So I do all of that as well. So it's pretty much a labor of love until I'm a rich guy and I just retire and I throw my hands in the air like I'm Thanos. I'm out. Like in a grateful universe, and I'm out. So when people say it's not possible, the website has a ton of resources from
So is this you right
financial
here?
plans, yeah. Financial plans to go all the way through.
You put it out there, so we're gonna talk about it.
Oh yeah, it's out there, man.
So one, I want to apologize, right?
Yeah.
Because I know we met at FinCon. I knew about the website, but I didn't really know. And I definitely didn't know you had a podcast, brother.
Oh, detailed, man. Financial Grill. We just talk about money. We just chill out. Had a good time.
I will be subbing. All right. So in 2012, you made $27,903. That was your take home pay.
Yes. And my expenses were more than that. I was living a paycheck to debt trying to survive.
The expenses were $28,692.
Yep.
Now, 2022, you made 113. Well, let's go to 2023, right? You estimate to make $114,440.
Yeah, that's
with expenses of $72,500. Now, is this you?
It's me and my wife together. So at the very beginning, from like 2012 to 2019, if not, yeah, to 2012 to like 2019 is just me. But then 2020 is me and my wife from that point on.
Dope. All right. Well, I'm gonna be looking at your stuff. Don't be surprised if I talk about your stuff. I will always give you credit.
Hey, even if you blast it in a negative way, go ahead, man. I have a thick skin. I'm rich.
Well, listen, I mean, we plugged in now. So
I'm in that Dave Chappelle. Like Dave Chappelle's like, I'm rich. I'm like, I don't know, it's not a problem for me.
Black man stunting positively. I'm all for that. All right. So Maddox said he's not a fan either. Elijah's in the building. What's up, Elijah? Everybody go subscribe to Financial Anatomy as well. Another Black finance creator. Elijah, you got to come to FinCon this year, sir. You got to pull up on us. And Elijah also supporting the chat. $10. I can put that to my daughter's college fund, so I won't be out here eating ramen noodles, getting high blood pressure even more than what I got. By the way, nobody should eat ramen noodles anymore. The sodium intake in that thing. Oh my God.
Well, you got to go to the real ramen spot though. It's on point.
So
I eat ramen, but I go to the real ramen spot.
I've heard about that.
A1.
But
and in Philly too. Philly got this spot called Terracotta Ramen. It's amazing.
I haven't heard of it, but I'll check it out. But I was scared that their sodium intake was going to be high, so I got to look at it a little bit more. But I'll try it once.
We headed back there in like June, a couple weeks, like a week and a half or something like that. Me and my wife will be out there.
Philly?
Yeah.
All right, we'll pull up. I'll take you to dinner.
I'm telling you, we're going to Terracottas, man. It's gonna be dope.
Nah, I got somewhere else for you to go.
Okay, I'll take you up on that.
Okay,
all right. I'll take you up on that.
And then y'all can go on your own, but I'll take you somewhere Black first. All right. All right. So as we wrap up again, thank you, Elijah, for that $10 super chat. All super chats are welcome. I appreciate you all. Before we get out of here, where can people find you?
You can find me on the interwebs at the Neighborhood Finance Guy. The entire word spelled all the way out. Do not mess it up, or you're going to end up somewhere else. I have no idea where that place is, but you end up there. You can also find me with my co-host on the Financial Grill podcast, where we just talk about our money stories and bring in different guests. So we just chat it up and with a little bit less structure, a lot more fun, and a lot more of these kind of conversation of just like getting to know real people and see where we actually going to connect and kind of go from there.
Nice. Don Johnson. International Secret. Where can they find you, sir?
You can hit me up on Twitter if you want. It's D_Johnson1220. But Facebook, Don Johnson. But besides that, I'm just your normal everyday financial nerd that, just troll random posts about people scamming. But that's it.
Well,
I thought it was a hater, though. I'm like, it's a hater. Let's go. Let's go.
Well, listen, I enjoy both of y'all here. I'm extending invitations to both of you. I want you both to come back. I enjoy the conversation because we need to have more quote unquote regular people, right? We're all superheroes in our own lane. We need to figure out how to highlight that more. And I would love to start doing that more here on the show. But as we get out of here, folks, remember to dream, save, and with some middle savings, make sure you do some investing. In the interim, make sure you stay inquisitive. Make sure you stay dangerous. And I will see y'all at the next financial show shindig. Till the next time, y'all have a great one. Bye-bye.
Safe.